Hello, everyone, and welcome to After the Award, where we are going to talk about all of the things that have been happening in our awardee's life since winning the Isaac Grant. And so we're just going to get started with a simple thing. If you can just give me your name, the institution that you're connected to, and the year that you won your grant.
Thanks. So my name's Aaron Miller. I'm at Cleveland Clinic Foundation. And so we actually received two ISAC awards, one in 2024 and I think one in 2025.
Why did you apply for the Innovative Science Accelerator Program grant? Like, what piqued your interest about it? What was different about it? What was your inspiration for doing so?
So I would say that primarily, like the research that we're doing, it's high risk, high reward. And so one of the projects that we're working on is looking at the impact of oxalate on atherosclerosis and chronic kidney injury in addition to kidney stones. And so typically oxalate is thought to be just a kidney stone only problem. And so what we really wanted to show was that it's not just kidney stones, it expands to other comorbidities and systemic inflammation. And similar to our other project that we got funded through ISAC, we're looking at sort of the evolutionary impacts of oxalate on gut bacteria. And so again, this is one of those kind of high risk, high reward projects, since most of research in this area is focused on one single species in the gut that degrades oxalate. And so what we've really been showing is, there's a substantial portion of the gut microbiota involved in oxalate metabolism, but also, looking at the effects of the oxalate on the gut bacteria itself hasn't really been done before.
The idea of just being able to apply for something that was pushing and encouraging these type of high, as you said, high risk, high reward ideas, and being able to kind of have that funding to push that research through was really what, I guess encouraged the process as well. So what progress has your innovative idea made so far, in like any awards? Like, have you won any additional awards since winning the Isaac Grant, and just kind of where are you in the process?
So we've made some pretty substantial progress on our oxalate atherosclerosis study. When we introduced oxalate into our mouse model, so it's a genetic dyslipidemia model that's typically used in atherosclerosis. And so what we found was that oxalate, in the absence of the typical high-fat, high-sugar diet that's given to these animals, will induce atherosclerosis by itself. And so this is a kind of a major advance in the field as a whole. And this was associated with like systemic inflammation, and it actually produced true human-like idiopathic calcium oxalate kidney stones. And so this is something that's been severely lacking in the kidney stone field as well. And so that really substantially advances the field in that way as well. And so that project it's been in review, peer review, for quite some time now. And so hopefully that we'll get that publication out soon. And we're also using it for multiple future like NIH grants that some of them are under review right now. So just based on the substantial advancement we've made in that project, we're moving in a lot of different directions from that. Our other ISAC award, it's newer, and we've also made substantial advancements there, showing that oxalate can actually mutate bacterial genomes, cause like gene duplications and horizontal gene transfers, and really show that in some circumstances, so like in more simplified gut microbiota, we actually show that oxalate can push the gut microbiota towards a pathogenic state. And so this has a lot of implications for people who have, a history of antibiotic use. So in those cases, oxalate can actually push the gut microbiota to cause things like colitis towards because of the pathogenic bacteria, but also because of oxalate exposure itself. And so that project, it's a bit newer, but we are, preparing a publication for that, and do plan on submitting some additional grants to kind of continue that work as well.
have you been able to advance any of your research to actually, working with humans during this process, or has it just been solely animals, or where are you in that?
So that's something that we are in the planning stages for. And so we've done a lot of work on, what bacteria degrade oxalate, and this has been in conjunction with a number of observational clinical studies. And so through that work, we've been able to define sort of a microbial community that we think would benefit in clinical trials to lower urinary oxalate and systemic oxalate. And so typically what's used is this single species, Oxalobacter flamigenides, and it has about a 50% success rate. But in some of our studies, we've actually found that what determines success is your total abundance of oxalate-degrading bacteria. So it's more effective in people who lack oxalate-degrading bacteria for the most part to start with. And so this project is ready for clinical trials where we can actually induce these bacteria into people. And this would help to lower risk of kidney stones, but also systemic inflammation and atherosclerosis and cardiac events, specifically by lowering oxalate that comes in through the diet, or even as it is absorbed into the gut from liver production.
You also mentioned one more thing. Thank you so much for sharing that and clarifying that. You mentioned something about your research being peer reviewed. Do you know about how long that process is going to take for when it's able to actually be published? Or is it just kind of up to, those who are reviewing your work?
Yeah, for the publications, I mean, yeah, so it's so the paper on oxalate and atherosclerosis and kidney stones, that's been in review for like 6 or 7 months now. So it's actually like much longer than what is typical, but I think the climate around like reviewing manuscripts kind of contributes to that as well. But it's close to we're close to getting a decision on that, which it's a very, very thorough mechanistic study. But yeah, so it should be hopefully published, within a few months, I think.
And as soon as it is, we definitely want to share that with our audience so they can see the incredible work that you all have been doing. I just have a few more questions. And again, this has been so informative and helpful. So thank you so much, Dr. Miller. Where do you see the future of your idea going? Like, where do you have a goal in mind? I know that you said you guys are getting ready to, transition into being able to make this, turn this into clinical research, working with humans and everything. But do you have a specific goal in mind for human interest or just anything of that nature? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're a very translational research lab, and so basically what we do is we start at bedside to identify like potential targets for modification, and then test it in bench studies, so like in vitro animal studies and biochemical studies, and then back to bedside, so getting those interventions into humans. And so really, even though oxalate's been known about for kidney stones for many decades, or even probably over 100 years, there hasn't been a lot of there isn't a lot known about the broader impacts of oxalate. So like I said, it's all focused on kidney stones. And so what our research is showing and what other people are showing is that oxalate has very broad implications for chronic inflammation, atherosclerosis, kidney injury, and things like that. And so really, what we're trying to do is to bring these interventions to lower oxalate burdens, and this would have, profound health impacts for patients that, suffer from diseases of chronic inflammation or of the kidney or of the vascular system. And so that's kind of really what our objective is to improve these pretty substantial outcomes.
Thank you so much for sharing. What advice, and this is our last question, actually. What advice would you give incoming researchers in regard to applying for grants and finding their way in their scientific research experience?
Um, so for me, like what I try to do in my research is I identify, well-established scientific models or paradigms that maybe just have not worked the way that people have thought they should work, and try to identify why it doesn't work. And so we've been very successful at it in my lab so far. And I would say, the biggest challenge in terms of both like publication and grant funding is trying to find the right audience. And that can be a pretty difficult task. And so like your science could be absolutely top tier. But if it's not hitting the right reviewer, they're just going to discount it and they're not going to fund it. And so I would say like that's probably the biggest challenge is finding the right audience for your grant proposals and finding the right funding mechanisms to make sure it goes into reviewers that understand the problem and understand your science. And yeah.
That was so good. Definitely, I'm sure an upcoming researcher would appreciate that advice. Just essentially, and I really love the point that you made about your science could be really great, but it really is, it does matter about the audience and what you're sharing this with. So I just appreciate that perspective, and thank you so much for joining us for After the Award.
Sure. Thanks for having me.